welcome back to the channel. Slightly different video for you today. Today it's all about two models. So all the reviews that I do are to enable people to make better buying decisions. But today we've got a slight switch. So here's the scenario. You've decided what type of model you want, you've got the money together, and then you discover when you're looking around the different websites that there are two. So how to decide between which one you want. And today, to help us, we have the QuanGuan P51 Mustang and the Wange P51 Mustang. Now normally I would show you some speed build for about a minute and then some pictures, but I don't think anybody really wants to see a speed build of two different planes that are essentially the same. So I'm just going to show you some pictures of each one from different angles, because they are very different although they're the same. You'll see what I mean later. Anyway, let's crack on and build. So welcome back. Right, so how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through some plus and negative points of each of these particular models. So first of all, we'll start as we normally do with the instructions. For the QuanGuan, now the instructions are not bad, but there are definitely a few pieces in here that are a little bit tricky to work out, particularly on the wings. And what you'll find throughout this particular video is two very different sort of philosophies on the build process between the two companies, between Wange and QuanGuan. And neither of these models is perfect. Both of them are very, very good though. So it's what you want out of a model that's going to make the decision for you on this. Now the QuanGuan, as I say, the instructions, they're okay. They're not anything special, but they're okay. They will get you through. The QuanGuan is a more typical model. You start making the fuselage, then you make the wings. The piece count is considerably higher in the QuanGuan. It's about it's just under 600 pieces. So probably about 500 pieces for the actual model, because obviously on this you get a stand. And actually that is a very good stand indeed. I have no worries at all, even though there's a bit of tremble and movement. I have no worries about that falling over in the slightest. But the QuanGuan approach is very few custom pieces. Probably the very front here, the sort of the engine cover, nose cowling sort of, and the exhausts, which are a rubbery sort of material. They're not the usual sort of plastic, but otherwise it's generally small pieces that go to make up obviously the larger model itself. Now there's pluses and minuses with that. For instance, when you're making particularly the wings and you've got lots of smaller bits, it tends to be quite fragile until you finish it off, and once you've finished it, all the pieces will give it its strength. And there you go. You see, you can flick that quite hard, but because of the integrity within the structure, it's absolutely fine. You've got ailerons that will move, and overall the QuanGuan it's a lot more colourful. Obviously there's a lot more stickers, and they're both stickers, they're not decals on both things, and it does come with the minifigure of the pilot. As you can see, the rudder at the back here, the tailplane, is more of a traditional sort of build. It's got a little bit of thickness to it. The rudder does not move, and the flaps at the back do not move either. It does come off of the stand with a bit of difficulty. Now that is part of the aeroplane, but I'm going to leave that off for the moment because it's a bit of a pain to get off of that. The air intake is not particularly detailed underneath, but the undercarriage does lower. So you do have the option on that. You don't have to put it on the stand, you can just have it on its wheels if you want. But it gives you options, so it's quite a nice touch. But obviously one of the things with a higher piece count model that uses smaller bricks is you get those slightly raised lines sometimes. You can't help but get, really. You know, you see one bit pushed up, you push it back in, and the bit next to it comes up. And while you can flatten it in general, there is a little bit of that going on with the QuanGuan. And the other thing, which may not make any difference to anybody, but the propeller, that is very stiff. You cannot just hit that and let it run round, which is a little bit of a shame, because obviously anybody, well, pretty much any man, one of the first things they can do is go whoop like that on the propeller, and in this particular case, if I try that, the propeller will go flying off across the room and leave the plane here. Not necessarily ideal, but particularly if it's up on the stand, and the stand is movable, or posable, I think is the correct term, so you can have it in a variety of different positions, whatever it is that suits you. So that's the QuanGuan. The Wange, now this has a different philosophy. This is predominantly larger bricks, and they have made a lot more use of custom bricks. So the exhausts on the engine cowling, that is moulded into the piece that's here. As we were just saying with the propeller on the QuanGuan, you can do that with the Wange quite comfortably. Now this doesn't come with a minifigure, so there is no pilot in here. I did have a look at putting one of the minifigures in here, but you could do it, but you will have to remove the legs, so just have the torso in there. That will work. One thing I did find with the Wange was, if you can see, if I take the canopy off, oh, and sorry, that's one thing I forgot to mention, with the both canopies, neither of them tilt, they just push on. Now with the Wange one, the essentially the headrest for the pilot and these two vent bricks are actually supposed to be slightly further, one stud further back. However, when I was building it, when I was trying to get the canopy on, and it's very obvious where the canopy has to go, the corners of those two bits were not allowing me to fit the canopy in place, so I did move them forward. It's nothing special, it's not a lot, but I would mention it. The undercarriage with the Wange, it is fixed in position, so you either take that off completely and have it in flight, or you leave them down. But obviously it does come with the fuel tanks, and the air intake underneath is modelled as an air intake. Completely different philosophy at the back here. Ooh, nearly knocked him over. Between the two, as I said, the QuanGuan is a more traditional sort of tailplane, whereas the Wange, again, is custom piece as well for the two back here, and your flaps do move here. No ailerons, and obviously one thing you will notice is the back of the wings are studded still, whereas with the QuanGuan they're completely smooth. Now you don't get quite so much of the problem as you do with the QuanGuan with the Wange, because they're bigger bricks. You don't really get those lifted lines quite as anywhere near as much as you do with that. This is slightly bigger as well, you may have noticed. Now neither of them actually say on here, on their instructions, what scale they are, so I'm guessing here, but based on some of the other things I've got, I would say this is probably 1/32nd for the Wange and probably 1/35th for the Guan. Again, that's something that might make a difference to you. Both of them, I think, are excellent models, and in a way, if you could mix the two of them up together, you would end up with the perfect model. I think if you had the QuanGuan this size, with the smooth wings, with the larger bricks, with the cockpit and the canopy of the QuanGuan, with the rear of the fuselage of the Wange, the propellers of the Wange, but with the engine cowling of the QuanGuan, and the undercarriage and stand of the QuanGuan, you would end up with a fantastic model. Really, yeah, it's probably as perfect as you can get. But as I say, there is it is what it is. There is the difference. These are the differences between the two. Now, pretty much lastly, the range instructions. So we've circled all the way around again. The range instructions are excellent. No complaints in the slightest here. The piece count is a lot lower. This is 256 pieces as opposed to 580 for this, but with the stand, so you're probably looking at about 520 for the actual plane itself. So half the piece count of the QuanGuan. One of the nice things that I noticed with the Wange, you do get a certain amount of history with it, which I do like to see. It doesn't take a lot, an extra page or two, but just gives you a little bit extra, and you get the piece directory in there. Again, something I find quite useful on occasions. So there you go. That's the two Mustangs. Now, as far as price is concerned, again, this may sway your decision. The Wange cost me £13.67. The QuanGuan cost me £15.89. So ever so slightly more for the QuanGuan. But it's got double the amount of pieces. It's got considerably more stickers with it. It does come with a pilot. The Wange makes better use of the pieces that it has. The custom pieces are very good, and they both have that authenticity of a good model. So to a degree, whichever one you pick, I think you would be happy with. They are both very, very good models. I think what you've got to think of is what you want it for. Is it something that's going to be you want to get your teeth into? Is it something how you want to display it afterwards? Is it going to go in some form of cabinet? Is it going to go on a shelf somewhere? Is it going to just hang around until the kids have knocked enough bits off it that you can't find, that it'll get broken up and put into the Lego tub? These are things that you need to answer, but whichever one you go for, if you're after a Mustang, then they're both really, really good. So decision's yours. Well, hopefully you found this video useful. If you have, please like and subscribe to the channel. I will have more of these videos coming up over the next few months. I've got a couple of Messerschmitts and a couple of Spitfires, and one of the things I want to do is also start to incorporate different tanks and armoured vehicles in there as well. So again, you get we get a nice mixture of rather than me just saying here's the model of today. So there we go. Right, you take care, and I'll see you again. Bye bye.